Throughout my early teenage years, before I could drive, I would always beg my mom to take me to concerts all over the place, especially if it was Motley Crue. And being the fantastic mother that she is, she always obliged. I don't think there was a single concert back in those days that I wanted to go to that we didn't end up going to, no matter how much she disliked whoever it was that was playing. In 2010, Ozzfest did what was ultimately the last year of touring for the festival, though it was only 6 U.S. shows with 2 dates in London and Tel Aviv as well, with Motley Crue, Rob Halford's solo, Devil Driver, Nonpoint, and of course, the Prince of Darkness himself, Ozzy Osbourne. Luckily for me, I was able to convince my mom at the very last second to take me and my cousin, who, by the way, was pulled out of football practice to go, with my uncle telling the coach that we had a family emergency. And we got to Pittsburgh just in time to see the Crew, and then Ozzy for, unfortunately, my one and only time. Now, it looks like I will never get to see him again, as he has released a statement to the surprise of nobody that he is officially retiring from touring. Let's take a closer look. In a statement released late on January 31st, the Prince of Darkness, Ozzy Osbourne, has announced that he will in fact be retiring from touring due to the aftermath of his fall 4 years ago, where he damaged his spine and aggravated injuries from an ATV accident back in 2003. In the statement, Ozzy says, quote, "This is probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to share with my loyal fans. As you may all know, 4 years ago this month, I had a major accident where I damaged my spine. My one and only purpose during this time has been to get back on stage. My singing voice is fine. However, after 3 operations, stem cell treatments, endless physical therapy sessions, and most recently, groundbreaking cybernetics HAL treatment, my body is still physically weak. I am honestly humbled by the way you've all patiently held on to your tickets for all this time. But in all good conscience, I have now come to the realization that I'm not physically capable of doing my upcoming European and UK tour dates, as I know I couldn't deal with the travel required. Believe me when I say that the thought of disappointing my fans really fucks me up, more than you will ever know. Never would I have imagined that my touring days would have ended this way. My team is currently coming up with ideas for where I will be able to perform without having to travel from city to city and country to country. I want to thank my family, my band, my crew, my longtime friends Judas Priest, and of course, my fans for their endless dedication, loyalty, and support, and for giving me the life that I had never dreamed I would have. I love you all." As unfortunate as this is to say, this should honestly come as a surprise to absolutely no one, as the guy has been in poor health for many, many years now. This is, I believe, like the 4th time that this tour has been scrapped. It was postponed initially because he had to get a surgery for a complication stemming from pneumonia. The second time was to handle issues following the fall back in 2019, which obviously he's still recovering from. And the third time was in October of 2020 due to the pandemic. Not to mention, this tour was called No More Tours 2. So already this was set to be his final farewell. Now, there has been some speculation that maybe he'll do a residency or some one-offs here or there or something, but I just don't see that happening anytime soon. He mentions in the statement that his team is working on ways for him to perform without him having to travel, which obviously screams residency. But I just don't see it happening. I really sincerely hope that I'm wrong, but I don't think so, and most certainly not anytime in the near future, but I could be wrong. But in December of last year, 2022, he was spotted in a grocery store heavily relying on the cart for support, and he had an assistant helping him out as well. Look, by no means am I dogging on Ozzy whatsoever, but that's just the sad reality of it, not to mention his Parkinson's as well. All of that being said, though, the legacy that he is leaving behind on the road has certainly changed the landscape of not just touring, but the music industry as a whole, especially in the rock and metal world. For one, not only did the guy basically create heavy metal along with the other members of Black Sabbath, but he was a trailblazer throughout his entire career. One of the first guys to build a successful solo career after leaving his band, which you could argue had more success than Black Sabbath to some extent, releasing a massive catalog of great record after great record, hit after hit. Not to mention, he's got to be, along with Alice Cooper, the king of finding great guitar players. Starting with Tony Iommi and Black Sabbath, of course, who has obviously created some of the greatest guitar riffs of all time, to Randy Rhoads, who is only here for a short while and is still highly revered and very influential to this day. Jakey Lee, Gus G, obviously Zakk Wylde, a ton of others. Definitely a strong knack for finding talent. Obviously, the other thing that Ozzy helped to pioneer was rock and metal festivals. After Sharon came up with the idea for Ozzfest after being denied a spot on Lollapalooza, it went on to become a huge success and helped a ton of bands who are massive now to get their start. It had a run over 2 decades long, from 96 to 2018, with some years off in between, of course. But still, even the recent editions of the festival stayed true to their roots for the most part, at one of the only festivals with bands in our world that appealed to the masses, at least here in America. We don't have Wacken or Download or anything like that. There are plenty of rock festivals over here these days, of course, but they definitely change with the times a bit. They try to stay current with whatever's hot at the time to some extent. But Ozzfest certainly played a role inspiration-wise for those current festivals to even be created. Ozzy was also one of the first, if not the first, rock musician to star in his own reality show that wasn't really music-centered. Of course, now you have shows with Sammy Hagar, and you had Gene Simmons' Family Jewels, Rock of Love with Bret Michaels, Full Throttle Saloon with Jesse James Dupree of Jackal. Ozzy had a travel show with his son Jack. Now it's a pretty common thing, but not back in 2002 when the Osbournes premiered. Of course, you could credit Sharon's business savviness for most of this, but none of it would have been possible without Ozzy's own success as a musician. Let's also not forget the short-lived battle for Ozzfest that aired for one season on MTV, that pitted 8 bands against each other on national TV to win a spot on Ozzfest, which was a great concept, and at that time, American Idol was huge, so it served as a great alternative for people who were into the heavier side of things. The winner was a band called A Dozen Furies, who have since split up, but a few of those bands are still active, including this band Final Drive, who really are a great band and very underrated. You should check them out. Of course, Ozzy is also still releasing records to this day, with his most recent 2022's Patient Number 9 receiving critical acclaim and earning him his first ever pair of back-to-back #1 radio singles, with One of Those Days with Eric Clapton, and then the title track featuring Jeff Beck, Rest in Peace. All of this to say, no surprise, of course, with the announcement, but very glad that he hit it head on instead of staying silent and just rescheduling or canceling again. And of course, he's had a legendary career to look back on and spending about 5 decades on the road, so nobody should disagree. Ozzy is more than deserving of retirement, so honestly, congratulations to the Prince of Darkness. All right, though, I gotta run because as Ozzy once had a bat's head in his mouth, my fiance is waiting to have a different head in her mouth, so I gotta go. But thanks so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you next time.